just got back from doing some training out at Eastern Hancock, actually. Trained a couple guys there. It was really fun.
Okay. Are we trimming down the beard too, though? Or do you like that?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Beard and then the rest, same on the sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
First podcast, guys, where Luke's not trimming the top here.
Getting a little different today.
Getting a little, what's going on here? What's going on?
A little different.
You know what's crazy? When you first had said something about like, man, we should do like a video of talking about like what our jobs are and kind of like giving a little backstory to that stuff and how God's using it. The second you said that, I was like, yo, I realized like we've never had like a actual direct conversation about that with your training.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I know I've seen some of the fruit of what that's done, like, but I've never actually had a direct conversation with you about that. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm like, dang, that's crazy. We've never actually like directly talked about that before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So why'd you fill me in?
Yeah. So whenever I was like in high school, I was gonna go to college, but I didn't really know what I wanted to study. So I just remember being like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I knew I liked kind of doing like some editing and stuff, so I was like, maybe I'll do like computer science. Mm-hmm. But
you were editing like the cool
I was
dude
doing
photos.
like okay. Why did it have to be the cool dude?
Cue the pop up. Cue the pop up.
We did some very corny pictures as kids. And basically my only editing on that was just making them black and white. I don't think I did anything other than that.
Whoa.
But yeah, so I was doing some editing, some like actual editing, not just that. And I was in high school. And so after I kind of done that for a while, I thought maybe I was going to get into that. But I didn't think I wanted to just like be at a desk all day long. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I remember I was doing dual credit classes in college. And I went to a basketball game at Anderson University. I was sitting there watching the game, and I saw like some of the assistants and stuff, like sitting on the bench and like helping them warm up and stuff before the game. And it was just like, it just like hit me. I was like, wait, I want to do that. I didn't even know what they really did. I just thought like, oh, I want to do that. That just like looks really cool.
I know that.
So I went and reached out to the women's basketball coach at the time, and I was like, hey, like, do you guys have any positions that you like need help with? And she was like, yeah, we may at some point, but like not really right now. Like this was like at the end of their season, and I was talking about the next season. So she was like, yeah, like we're not really thinking about that yet.
What year was this? At your college year?
This is going into 2016. So this is my freshman year.
Freshman year?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. And she's just like, yeah, we're not really ready for that yet. And I was like, okay. But then I just like kept calling her over and over and over. Like I was calling probably like multiple times a month, just like over the summer, just to say like, hey, like I'm just checking on an update. And she knew that my sister played at Anderson High School. So she called the coach at Anderson High School. Yeah. Right. Our sister. She called the high school and called the coach and was like, okay, is this dude like crazy? Like, is he like weird? Or is he like actually that good of a worker to where he just actually is really trying to work for me like that? And the coach knew me and was like, no, like he actually is like that. So then she ended up hiring me. But she like called
I did not know that.
Like, is this dude weird or is he actually that dedicated?
Hey, there's a fine line between a good worker and a weirdo.
Right.
That's good she checked in first.
So I ended up going. I literally knew nothing about basketball. I didn't understand like how to run a shot clock. I was like running the clock and stuff. Just like I didn't know how to
like
run
practices
a shot
and
clock.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming this is your sophomore year.
This is my freshman year. Yeah.
Still, I thought you said the season was ending.
Or well, this is going into my freshman year when I've got to make a decision. Yeah. So maybe I didn't make that very clear. So like, I'm having all these conversations with her my senior year of high school when I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Yeah.
Okay.
So then by the time I get to my freshman year, I'm like, okay, I'm going to study exercise science and I'm going to be a basketball coach. Mm-hmm. So I go and start working there my freshman year. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I really, really enjoyed it. Ended up learning so much under that coach. She taught me really basically all that I knew about basketball. And after I was done, I was like, man, like I really like coaching, but I was able to do like some skill work and stuff with players while I was there. And I was like, I really feel like that's actually what I want to do. So I did that all my years in college, worked for her. And then after I graduated, I started doing personal training, which is what I'm doing now. And I just feel like it's like the exact lane that God is wanting me in right now. I'm really good with like one-on-one interactions and like smaller group stuff. And it's just been able to lead to like so many good conversations and just the ability to really like kind of go deeper with kids than when you're trying to coach 15 or 18 kids at the same time. I get to just be in the gym with one kid at a time, really pour into them, ask them questions, see how their life is going. And for a while I did it just because I like basketball so much, and I was just like, oh, this is like a cool career. But now I feel like God's using it more to have a little deeper meaning than just me helping them maybe become a better shooter or whatever the case might be, which is fun. I still really enjoy that, but yeah, it's just been fun to be able to kind of take it to a little deeper level over, I'd say, probably the last year. Of being able to do that. So yeah.
At what point did you feel like when the switch happened, like a little over a year ago, you say, like, was there like a conscious like I don't know, something happening that like made it switch, or do you feel like it just was like a gradual kind of like piece by piece thing?
So I think like what a lot of us will do at different times is maybe God has a calling on our lives and it's something that feels natural to us. So we go into it just on like the energy from the call and not really with any sort of mission.
That makes sense.
So I did it for a few years without really being on mission, and that juice just like ran out eventually because my call wasn't to just be a basketball trainer. So then when I was trying to just do it as that, yeah, I just ran out of gas. And so then I wasn't enjoying it as much, and I was like, man, why am I losing the love for it? It's like, oh, because being a basketball trainer was never actually supposed to sustain me. It was supposed to be that I was using that as a vessel to be able to do something else. So then that, I guess that's kind of what led me to wanting to be a little bit more on mission, was just I was losing the love for it, doing it only for basketball. Yeah.
And then what was I want to say sometime earlier this year, didn't you baptize one of the people that you trained?
Yeah, and that was just really cool because, I mean, it was just so shortly after kind of that switch happened where I was like, okay, I'm going to start trying to have more meaningful conversations with people and asking them how their life is going and different stuff. And so, yeah, there's been multiple people that I trained that have come to church with us. There's a friend of mine that I was able to baptize whenever we were going to church. And just be able to meet them where they were at. I don't want it to just be that I'm just like walking up to random people and like, hey, you should come to church with me. But the fact that we're growing relationships with people, being able to have an impact and meet them where they're comfortable and where they're at, makes those conversations a little bit easier down the road.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's so important because sometimes we go to people and we have like battering rams and we're just like, Jesus, and just like try to force our way in there, and they're like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? I don't even know if you even actually really care about me, or if you're more just wanting to like satisfy your ego by seeing someone agree with what you agree with, or you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever that may be. And I mean, that's quite literally what Jesus did, is he humbled himself and entered into our world, literally. Like, quite literally entered into our world and quite literally walked with us. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't, I mean, if he's the author and finisher of our faith, that shouldn't be any different for us in how we love people and how we pursue people, and how we try to point them towards Christ as we go, okay, who are you? I'm willing to walk with you because like my life is not my own anymore, and I'm good. So I don't need to like, I don't know. I don't have like my own agenda now. So like I can actually like put myself aside and walk with you. That's really important.
I mean, yeah, like you were saying, just Jesus was just doing it all the time. He was, the woman at the well, he didn't just walk up and like, hey, you're living in sin. Like he walked up and, hey, can you get me a drink? It just really sat there and just had some conversation with her. Or the other one I always think of is Zacchaeus. That he knew what Zacchaeus was doing in the way that he was stealing money from people and not basically being immoral in how he was operating in his job. But instead of just looking at him and calling him out, he said, hey, I want to come over to your house and eat with you. And just him just being in proximity to him and eating lunch with him, basically. Zacchaeus' heart is convicted. He goes, oh man, I'm going to change how I'm living. I'm going to give this money back. Yeah. That, and definitely, like you were saying, if that's the way that Jesus did it, we better not think we can do it in any more efficient or effective way than what he was doing it.
Well, I think what you said right there, that vocabulary is really important. That, like, being in close proximity, like we're not trying to bring people close to us so they're changed by our lives or changed by like who we are, but we're getting close to people to bring them near the Spirit. And the proximity that's brought upon them by the Spirit that lives in us should bring about a change in them. Not like, look at who I am and look at But we just bring in the Spirit, and being in closeness to that will bring about change. But that probably changes how we'll approach people, because we won't be trying to go out there and be like, I know this and I did.
Well, and like speaking of the proximity, as you're like touching all on my face and stuff, the position that you're in, you're like, you're really dealing with people in like very close and I don't know, you're just like really like, people are in a vulnerable spot basically when they come to you for what you do.
They trusted me with their next 3 weeks of social life.
Talk a little bit about like how you've been able to use those scenarios in your own profession.
Well, do you want me to give like a backstory, like what you did? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me speed run this first part. I grew up drawing, doing art. We were really close with our first barber. He told my dad, usually people who can do art can cut hair. So my dad was like, okay, bet. And he came out with some clippers one night and was like, you want to cut my hair? And I was like, heck yeah. I was like 12 at the time. Not like, I was 12. And I thought that sounded fun. Obviously messed him up bad. And he kept having me do it like every week. And there was a barber at his job, and his barber would be making little slick comments. I was like, nah, bro, I can't have that. I gotta at least get him right once. So I like watched the video and I was like, dang, this is cool. So then I started watching like 5 to 7 hours a day. Started doing some other family members. Started doing some friends, and went to high school, and it really started picking up. And got my license. Over that time, same thing that you said. Like, the calling part was like, yeah, I love cutting hair. This is so fun. Then that died out, and I was like, man, I love making money. This is so fun. And that kind of died out, and I was like, man, I love the social status I have at school. And then that kind of went through all those stages. And then, obviously, March 19th of last year, gave my life to Christ. And obviously, God was like, okay, now it's time to use this for what I actually want you to use it for. Or at least a smidgen of what he wants to use it for. And like you said, bro, being in close proximity with people. I mean, I have clients who come once a week. I'm getting weekly updates on people's lives. You know what I'm saying? And as I'm sure the same thing happens with you, like people are coming in and bringing in whatever's been happening that week onto the court or into the chair. So God put me in positions to speak to people when they need to hear something. It's been really cool. It's interesting if if you're willing to trust somebody with a service, you're probably willing to trust them with other things. So people obviously are willing to trust me with a lot of stuff in here, and obviously that trust has skyrocketed since I gave my life to Christ, because God's able to trust me with more things because He knows that that the responsibility He's giving me, I'm giving it back to Him. You know what I'm saying? So He's able to trust me in more situations. So it's been interesting, kind of like some people come in and there's like a super like hard shell I gotta like crack through. And other people, it's like the first appointment and they're just in here like whatever. But like eventually, sooner or later, because this is like life, eventually something happens in their life that hurts or that whatever, or something happens. And then they come in here and they're like, man, like it just always happens. Yeah. And but that's also been good for me to see, just like, wow, like we really all just be going through stuff, like, and it's been cool because it's like, man, out of their whole week, month, year, whatever, like this stuff is happening, and God strategically placed at least one person with the Spirit that they're interacting with. And it's cool to see how God has like strategically placed me in people's lives to like, the guy uses me to like intervene at a particular moment or speak a word or whatever it may be, you know what I'm saying? So that's, yeah, it's been really cool. So obviously now, I mean, like, this is probably the most I've liked cutting hair, but, and not even in like a spiritual sense. This is the most I've actually liked cutting hair. I actually really enjoy cutting hair. But it's the least I've cared about how much I liked cutting hair.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wow, like I'm getting up and like partnering with God while I'm in here cutting hair. And that's really the point. I was just talking to Pastor Mark yesterday about that. Of like, when Paul, I don't remember what church he was talking to, but he was like, you know, he's like, whatever you were doing before you came to Christ, like keep doing it. If you were a farmer, keep farming. If you were this, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It's not this thing of like, and that doesn't mean it doesn't happen sometimes, but it's not always this thing of like, gave my life to Christ. Okay, Afghanistan, here I come. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, It doesn't always have to be that. Although shout out my missionaries, shout out Zion Ephraim. But it's like, yo, like if you're a basketball trainer, keep training basketball.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's like those people that you're able to reach, someone who's a missionary overseas will never be able to reach the basketball players that you're talking to.
Right.
And so it's like we're meant to infiltrate every environment and every room with the Spirit. Mm-hmm. And that's what God's been doing with the barbering and obviously with the basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like I was talking to someone else yesterday too about some of this stuff, which is interesting that you're having a conversation about it too. But I think sometimes we hear people talk about calling and we think it's like what you were saying. We think it means we got to go bring in 1 million people for Christ or something like that. He just has like this huge thing, which a lot of times he does. Like a lot of times he does want us to maybe be able to bring in as many people as we can. But he's really just trying to get us to be on mission wherever we're at. So if I have 1,000 clients or if I have 10 of them, God isn't worried about the numbers like we can get sometimes. He's really just trying to be focused on us being on mission with the people that he's entrusted us with. But then what happens is kind of like what you were saying. Once you are on mission, it a lot of times does start to multiply because God can trust you with more. He can trust you when bringing extra people into your life and new people into your life. He's like, okay, now they're in a spot where they can steward this well. Yeah.
I think about this might be kind of a deep dive for the situation, but going back to old Israelite like sacrifices and stuff like that and offerings. There was a free will offering that they would do that you would like. It wasn't like there wasn't like some requirement. There wasn't like a specific amount that you had to give and da. Like it was a free will offering. Like if you want to give a free will offering, like da. Like that's what our sacrifice becomes. It becomes a free will offering. It's no longer this thing of like I have to give this thing up or like do this many amount of things to do whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm freely giving up my life because of what you've already done. And, you know, hopefully that the encompassment of that should be our lives. But also when God can entrust us with more things, it's not because he's entrusting us because like we somehow have the power to do this stuff. It's because he can entrust us that we're going to freely give it back to him. And there's a verse somewhere that talks about that. I can't remember. It's somewhere in the Old Testament where it's like, the things I've given you, like they freely gave back to me. I think that's what like being a faithful steward is. It's not like, okay, God, like I think I have the strength to. It's realizing that you don't, and like you're able to like see the things that God gives you as something to give back and not seeing it as like something to like some personal gain.
Yeah.
So I think I've seen an increase in the barbershop recently because God's working in my heart and going like, okay, like you really don't need anything but me. So anything that I give you, I'm giving it to you so that you can give it back to me and use it for, and I can use it for what I want to use it for.
Yeah.
But like, I would not be faithful with, I would be really faithful with probably like $1 million. I don't really have a huge, a connection to money. That's just kind of where I'm at in my life right now. That would still be tempting, but I don't have a huge connection to money. I would not be faithful with a relationship. Like a romantic relationship, I would not be faithful with that right now.
Yeah.
I know so quickly how like fast that would just be like, oh, this is all me.
Yeah.
That would not be something that I would be like in a spot right now to like willingly give back to God.
Yeah.
And I'm only admitting that because I'm not comfortable with staying here. I want to get to a point where I'm able to, whether or not God allows me to have a relationship. Yeah. But like, there's just certain things where it's just like, yeah, no, like if God gave me that right now, like I would be tweaking.
Yeah. One, all of that makes me think about the parable of the talents and God giving, or Jesus talked about this parable of a boss basically giving money to 3 different people. Mm-hmm. And there were 2 of them that invested it, and when the boss came back, they had more. And there was one of them that said, oh, I was like too scared to do anything with it. I knew you were harsh. I didn't do anything with it. I just buried my money. And now that you're back, I dug it up, and here's just the same amount that you gave me. Mm. And with the people who invested it and got more, the boss is saying, man, well done. I'm actually going to entrust you with even more money now because you stewarded it well. Mm. And the one who buried it, he said, I'm actually going to take the money that you had. I'm going to give it to one of the people who invested it well. Mm-hmm. And it just shows that God is not giving us these gifts for us to just like sit on them. Or to maybe be working in our gifts but not really on mission, kind of like what we were saying earlier. Mm-hmm. But that if we are willing to steward our gifts well, God is going to trust us with more, kind of like what we were saying before. But we've got to be in the mindset of like what you were just talking about, of like, okay, where am I lacking? Where am I struggling and missing the mark? And I'm going to start working on these areas so that God can trust me with more. Mm-hmm. And again, not so that I have $1 million or have 1 million followers or whatever the things might be. I'm realizing that God is willing to use me as a way to be able to bring about his kingdom here. So I'm going to take this really seriously and make sure I'm doing whatever I can to be in a spot where God is not taking my gifts and giving it to someone else, but willing to multiply what I have and can trust me with more.
That was part of what I talked about with Pastor Mark. Was I'd had a topic of the week in here, and one of them was love. And I was asking people like a bunch of questions about what they thought about love and what they thought it was and all these things. And then I asked someone like, what do you think grows love between 2 people? And I got like a couple different answers. And there was one of them, or 2 of them, but one of them that I always think about when it comes to like being like on mission. And they said like partnering on a project. And that should be what births our desire to be on mission for God. Is we're seeing who he is, we love him, we've given our lives to him, and then we see that he wants to use us to be a part of his will, and out of our love for him and our desire to see him glorified and to know him more, we partner with him. And in that partnership, the love between us and God grows. Because we're being used and we're doing something together. You know what I'm saying? Instead of this thing of like, oh, man, like I see an opportunity for me to like earn God a little bit more, you know, or whatever that might look like.
Yeah. I'll break the wall here and look at the camera and say, if you're listening to this and you are trying to figure out what your purpose is, or if you have a purpose, first of all, I want to say you do have a purpose.
For sure.
God does have something that he is wanting to use you for.
For sure.
To bring about the kingdom. I also just want to kind of convict us and say, like, we cannot take it lightly. Because if we don't do it, that means God's going to have to take what he's wanting you to do to further the kingdom and get someone else to do it. But he's wanting to use you. He doesn't want to have to jump to the next person.
Like the man with the talents.
Well, and it could even be a thing of like, there's been a need that's needed or that like needs to be met. And God's been asking other people, and they've all been saying no. And now he's getting to you and saying, "Okay, I need you to do it." Like, don't be the next no.
Man,
be the next person that's going to say yes. Whatever God is calling you to do, I'm not going to be too timid. I'm not going to just kind of sit on my gift and use it for myself, but I'm going to use it to try and further the kingdom.
And like, bro, be scared. That's cool.
Right.
Like, no one's asking you to not be. Let me get it from here, please. No one's asking you to like not feel those things. You know what I'm saying? But like when you are faced with those things, or when we're faced with fears or whatever those things, like we meet it with the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like I think about Jesus after he got tempted. Like Satan was hitting him with even some scripture, but like Jesus just kept meeting it with the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what we do when we're confronted with those things. Like no one's courageous unless they do something that they were scared to do. I would not call you courageous if you went and played a basketball game and you love playing basketball.
Yeah.
You like playing, bro. Like I'm not like, wait, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
But like doing something that you're like feeling scared to do, that's what like actual courage is. And that's the positions God wants to put us in, because it requires us to have to rely on him. You know what I'm saying? And for people who don't maybe know what their calling is or don't know what their gift is, like keep in mind that ultimately the point, our biggest responsibility is knowing who God is. And the more that you continue to pursue God, the more those things will become clear.
Yeah.
But if you put God and the kingdom first, all these things will be added to you. You don't got to worry about what mission field you're going to be into. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Focus your eyes on who God is. Those things will come.
Yeah.
And some of it might not even be coming yet, because God's like, we're not like tight enough yet.
Yeah.
To be having you out there.
Yeah. Well, and I think like that's probably a good distinction to make and say like, Ezra and I talked some about like our careers and how we're using that, but God's call in your life doesn't necessarily mean that he has a career for you to do. Like, you know what I mean?
Thanks.
The call is, how is God wanting to use you to make disciples?
Yep.
That's what the call is. So don't like panic if you're thinking like, oh, I'm 25 and I still don't know what I want to do for a career yet. Like that doesn't mean that God doesn't have a calling. It means like whatever you're doing right now, use it to glorify God and to make disciples.
And a worker is worth his wages. Like God's gonna provide those things. He really is. And I know that's like so overused, like God will provide. But like, bro, like you gotta taste and see those things. Like I don't care how many people tell me God's gonna provide. Like I have to be in a situation where I need to trust God and trust that he'll provide for me to like believe that. And as two people right here, and I can speak for Luke, who have been in situations like that and I've had to trust God and he came through. This is just encouragement to do that.
For sure. Yeah. Like
he really will. Like it really is just this thing of like God's going, you just focus on me and like please let me do everything else. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, let's close out with some prayer. Ooh, that kneel on the knee, dude.
We gotta get down still. We gotta get down.
God, thank you for who you are, allowing us to be able to be back in a position where we can begin to know you more, where we can start to learn what your plan is for the world, and then also what your plan is for us. God, I pray that you would start to break down the ideas and thought processes that your ideas towards us are just to prosper us, just so that we can have a good life. God, we've seen in your word that is not what you've ever promised, that you would just prosper us, and whatever we feel like doing, you're just going to make it great for our benefit. But that, God, you have put us on this planet for a purpose, not just so we can have a good time and hang out and do whatever we love, but that we can use what we love and what we enjoy doing to bring people closer to you and to help them to know you better. God, we believe that everyone who is listening to this, and both of us that are in this room, that God, you have a calling on our lives. You have something that you are wanting us to use. And God, I pray that we would just start to pray against the spirit of fear and intimidation of what other people are going to think or what other people are going to say, but that we would start to realize the truth of who you say that we are and what you are willing to use us for, and that would give us boldness and courage to step out into whatever you're calling us into. God, thank you for this conversation. I pray that it be a blessing to the people that are listening to it. In Jesus' name, amen.